The WNBA and the league's players union have held regular meetings since the sides agreed to a 30-day extension of the current CBA in late October. Sunday night marks the expiration, and the significant gap remains. So it don't sound like they're any closer, especially regarding the league's salary system going forward. Sources with knowledge of discussions told The Athletic. So they've been told straight up. They're far apart, and it's the salaries that...
The clock is ticking for the WNBA. For over a month, the league and its players' union have been locked in negotiations, operating on a 30-day extension they agreed to back in late October. Well, that extension officially expires today. And if you're hoping for good news, a report from the New York Times this morning paints a pretty grim picture. They're reporting that there's still a significant gap between the two sides. And when they say significant, they mean it. They're not close. Even after meeting regularly, including another intense bargaining session just yesterday, the core sticking point remains crystal clear. It's all about the money. More specifically, it's about the fundamental structure of how player salaries will be calculated and paid moving forward. And as of right now, neither side is budging. Both sides are completely dug in, creating a high-stakes standoff with the future of the league hanging in the balance.
Sources said the WNBPA has repeatedly proposed a system in which players' salaries are linked to a percentage of the revenue generated by the league. The league has sent a proposal at the end of October that would allow players on maximum level contracts to earn more than $1.1 million in total compensation, with that sum being made up of a combination of base salary believed to be around $800K to $850K per sources, and a revenue sharing component. Details of the revenue sharing element have not been publicized, and players remained frustrated by the league's proposal, which was reported on in mid-November, as it did not reflect their desires for an overhauled system and instead had a fixed base salary component at its...
So, let's break down exactly what's at the heart of this disagreement. Here's what the players are demanding versus what the league is putting on the table. The players' union has been consistent and vocal, repeatedly proposing that player salaries should be directly linked to a percentage of the league's total revenue. Think about it this way. It's the exact same model the NBA uses. As the league makes more money from TV deals, sponsorships, and ticket sales, the players automatically get a bigger piece of the pie. It's a system designed to scale together. Everyone benefits from growth. But what was the league's response to this proposal? In late October, they sent back a counteroffer that on the surface sounds fantastic, offering max contract players total compensation of over $1.1 million. But here's where you have to look at the fine print. That number breaks down to about $800,000 to $850,000 in base salary, with the rest coming from a mysterious revenue-sharing component that hasn't been publicly detailed at all. You can see why the players are so frustrated. This isn't what they asked for. They wanted a completely overhauled, modern system built on a transparent revenue percentage. What they got back was basically the old system, just with bigger numbers and a vague, undefined bonus element tacked on at the end. It's not the philosophical shift they were fighting for, it's just an incremental raise with a mystery box attached.
Today, if the sides elect to not reach another extension, a work stoppage would still not take effect immediately. The sides would instead enter a period of status quo, which would keep working conditions the same and continue to allow players to use team facilities and receive medical benefits.
Now you're probably wondering, what happens if the clock strikes midnight and they don't have a deal? This is a really important point to understand. A work stoppage, like a lockout or a strike, doesn't happen immediately. Instead, the league and the players enter what's known as a status quo period. During this time, all the working conditions from the old agreement stay exactly the same. Players can still show up to team facilities to train. They still receive all their medical benefits. And for all intents and purposes, everything continues as if the old CBA is still in effect. But here's the massive catch. The part that makes this situation so tense. At any point during this status quo period, with no warning, either the union or the league can unilaterally announce a work stoppage. It's like a ticking clock, with no set alarm, a standoff where either side can pull the trigger and shut everything down whenever they feel it's strategically right.
The sides could still agree to have another extension by Sunday's deadline. That's kind of what I think is going to happen. Before the 2020 CBA was reached, the league and the players' union agreed to 2 extensions, a 60-day extension and another 2-week extension, which ran until mid-January when a new agreement was reached. On October 30th, the sides agreed to an initial 30-day extension, with the union requesting a condition that allowed it to terminate the extension within 48 hours' notice. Both sides agreed to allow the other to have a termination clause, and they subsequently continued to meet with neither side enacting it. Before the October 31 deadline, the league met virtually with team front office personnel to discuss logistics of a work.
Of course, there is a clear precedent for kicking the can down the road with more extensions. If we look back to the negotiations before the 2020 CBA was finalized, the 2 sides first agreed to a 60-day extension, and then followed that up with another 2-week extension after that one expired. They didn't actually reach a final agreement until the middle of January. So, it's entirely possible we could see something similar happen here. They could very well announce another extension today to keep the talks alive. In fact, the current extension that's about to expire already has termination clauses built right into it. Both the league and the union have had the power to terminate the agreement with just 48 hours notice for weeks now. And the fact that neither side has pulled that trigger suggests they are still negotiating in good faith. But here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe a little ominous. Back on October 31st, right before the first deadline, the WNBA held a virtual meeting with all the team front office personnel, specifically to discuss the logistics of a potential work stoppage. Now, the league publicly claims this was just standard due diligence, not a sign they expect a lockout or strike. But think about the signal that sends. The league has already wargamed this entire scenario. They've walked through what happens if negotiations completely collapse. They have their contingency plans locked and loaded, and the owners got another detailed update on the state of negotiations during league meetings in New York on November 17th and 18th. The league side is absolutely prepared for a fight.
However, the league provided an update on the state of talks to its owners, I'm not saying board of governors, to its owners during league meetings in New York City on November 17th and 18th. You can cancel that woke crap. Other issues are also being negotiated in the addition of the salary framework, including formalizing the league-wide charter flight program and improving family planning benefits and health insurance. Sources said they have discussed formalizing benefits for retiring and retired players.
And let's be clear, it's not just about the headline salary numbers being discussed. There are a whole host of other critical issues on the negotiating table. They're working to formalize the league-wide charter flight program, a topic that exploded into a massive public issue last season. They're also negotiating for improved family planning benefits and better health insurance, as well as creating the first ever formal benefits for retiring and retired players, something the league has shockingly never had. And here's another huge one: the status of core designations. This is the mechanism teams use to completely restrict a player's movement, essentially franchise tagging their star player so they can't leave in free agency. The players' union has wanted to eliminate or at least seriously limit that power for years. If a comprehensive agreement isn't finalized by tomorrow, the entire offseason calendar gets thrown into absolute chaos. The expansion draft for the new teams in Toronto and Portland was supposed to happen very soon. For context, Golden State held their expansion draft on December 6th last year. If we were on last year's timeline, we'd be just 1 week away from finding out which players are heading to those new teams. But you can't finalize the draft rules until the CBA is done, because the CBA is what dictates roster construction, salary caps, and all the financial mechanics. On top of that, free agency normally kicks off in mid-January, and that could easily get pushed back too. The entire league calendar is effectively on hold, waiting for this deal to get done.
That the owners actually wanted them to not play in leagues like Unrivaled. So that gets interesting. They didn't say anything about them not wanting to play in overseas leagues, but specifically Unrivaled, of which I wonder Is that because it's a league that is in the United States, that's a professional league, and yes, is a competing league? Technically, Project B is a competing league, but one's competing a little less than the other one because one is actually in the United States. And then you got Project B in all of this looming in the background with bigger salaries to offer. So that's another thing that's not being brought up here. It hasn't been brought up in a while. Where are the owners on the state of the players playing for other leagues now? Because as we heard that salaries may increase by up to 4 times, we also heard, well, it may be possible that the owners don't want the players playing in other.
And there is a massive elephant in the room that wasn't even mentioned in that New York Times report. And it could be the most complicated piece of this entire puzzle. During the season, multiple players spoke openly about how the owners wanted them to stop playing in leagues like Unrivaled. And let's be specific here. Not the overseas leagues they've always played in, but specifically Unrivaled. Why the distinction? Because Unrivaled is a competing professional basketball league that operates right here in the United States. It represents direct competition for talent and viewership in a way that playing in Turkey or Russia never did. And now you've got another league, Project B, looming in the background, offering even bigger salaries than Unrivaled. So where do the owners stand on this now? Because the rumblings we heard during the season were that if salaries potentially quadruple in this new CBA, the league might demand total exclusivity, no playing in other leagues during the off-season period. That would be a monumental shift. WNBA players have always supplemented their income by playing overseas. It's been a core part of the league's ecosystem for decades. But if the league is about to start paying players 4 times what they make now, are they going to want those players available year-round for marketing and training? Are they going to want to eliminate the significant injury risk that comes from playing basketball for 11 straight months a year? This issue hasn't been brought up publicly in weeks, but you can bet it's a huge part of these negotiations. And it's incredibly complicated, because Unrivaled has already signed dozens of WNBA players for their inaugural season, which starts in January. If this new CBA suddenly includes restrictions on outside leagues, what happens to those legally binding contracts? What happens to the players who have already committed?
It is. It's interesting that the owners, the league side, has already had talks about work stoppage and what would happen and etc. in the event of a work stoppage. It sounds to me like they're staring each other down right now. Only one side really has the money here. It's the owners, right? The league. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching.
Let's just break down the reality of the negotiating dynamic right now. You have both sides staring each other down in a high-stakes game of chicken, but only one side truly holds the money. It's the owners. It's the league. The players can threaten a strike, and that's powerful, but the owners can almost certainly outlast them financially. The players need their salaries to pay their bills. The owners, many of whom also own NBA teams, have plenty of other revenue streams. This is not a balanced standoff. The very fact that the league has already held meetings about work stoppage logistics tells you everything you need to know. They are willing to let this drag out. They are prepared for a long, drawn-out negotiation because they've done the math on what a delayed season would cost them, and apparently they've decided it's a price worth paying to hold the line on their preferred salary structure. The players want a modern system where their pay is directly and transparently tied to the league's growth. The league wants to maintain absolute control over the salary structure, with fixed base amounts and discretionary revenue sharing. These are fundamentally different, incompatible philosophies. One is automatic and partnership-based. The other gives the league complete control over when and how much players benefit from the very revenue growth they help create. From the players' perspective, it's simple. The WNBA just had its most-watched season in decades, driven by Caitlin Clark's rookie year, which brought unprecedented ratings, attendance, and merchandise sales. The league is exploding, so the players are rightfully asking, why shouldn't our salaries automatically grow with it? Why should we have to fight every few years just to get a piece of the value we're creating? But from the league's perspective, they're likely thinking, we're not even profitable yet. Most of our teams are still losing money and being subsidized by NBA ownership. Yes, revenue is growing, but we need to reinvest that money into infrastructure, marketing, and expansion. We can't commit to an open-ended percentage of revenue when our costs are still so uncertain. Both positions make a certain kind of sense, and that's what makes this so incredibly difficult. And what's at stake is so much more than just money. This negotiation is happening at the most critical moment in WNBA history. The league finally has real, tangible momentum. Caitlin Clark brought in millions of casual fans. Paige Bueckers is coming next year. Expansion shows growth. This is the moment to capitalize. A work stoppage could kill all of that momentum instantly. Those new fans will just move on. The media attention will evaporate. Sponsors will get nervous. Everything the league has built could vanish. So what happens now? My guess is they'll announce another short extension today. They'll keep talking because neither side wants to be blamed for derailing the league's success. But eventually someone has to blink. The question is, who blinks first? Because whatever they agree to will define the WNBA's economic future for the next decade. It's about whether this league becomes a truly sustainable professional career or remains a passion project. We are just hours away from the deadline, and the future is completely uncertain. Let me know what you think happens next. Drop your predictions in the comments below.